And you think writing Coach sucks now. You're watching Beyond the Trailer's review of Snowpiercer.
I belong to the front. You belong to the tail. Know your place. Keep your place.
Those bastards in the front think they own us.
We'll be different when we get there.
What do you say?
We take the engine, and we control the world.
When is the time?
Soon.
Last week, in my review for Transformers Age of Extinction, I noted that as much as you might hate Transformers, it was the only new movie hitting theaters, and therefore your only option. Not true, some of you protested. See Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer, Snowpiercer, Snowpiercer. The South Korean's film title was sprinkled across the comments section, and I took notice. Sure, it only opened in 8 theaters, but as a New Yorker, that meant I was lucky enough to be near one of those 8. But imagine my surprise when I went up to the box office and discovered that the director himself, Bong Joon-ho, all the way from South Korea, was going to be at the theater for a Q&A just for that weekend. So to everyone who recommended Snowpiercer, thank you, although you might not want to thank me after you watch this review. Now, Snowpiercer is an interesting example of the growing pains that come with an increasingly global movie business. Bong Joon-ho certainly would not have been able to make Snowpiercer, and certainly not attract such a Hollywood cast, without The Host, his 2006 monster film which broke box office records in South Korea and got him noticed on the world stage. But while The Host didn't have a Hollywood cast, it did feature a Western story structure, which accounted for its crossover appeal. Yet with Snowpiercer, Bong Joon-ho has the exact opposite situation. A Hollywood cast, but an Eastern story structure. I asked Bong Joon-ho about this during the Q&A after the movie, and his response was twofold. One, he wanted to know why I felt Snowpiercer had an Eastern story structure, which I responded was because it played like an anime movie. And two, that he took it as a compliment that Snowpiercer didn't play like a Hollywood movie. Yet he wants to be a part of Hollywood? I mean, why else cast Hollywood talent, despite his claim he was going for an international feel? If that's the case, why not put together a truly international cast, rather than a Hollywood-South Korea hybrid? Although, Hollywood and Asia team-ups are all the rage these days, and Snowpiercer builds on a few other current trends as well. Like The Raid and then Dread, it has the low-budget friendly concept of a closed environment, swapping out a high-rise for a bullet train. Snowpiercer is also a comic book movie based on a French graphic novel. And also, like many other Hollywood movies, it deviates considerably from the source material. Perhaps the contradiction that is Bong Joon-ho can be best summed up by something else he said in the Q&A, that he found The Sound of Music, the third most successful movie of all time when adjusting for inflation, boring. Nobody's saying he has to like the classic flick, but to not even respect it, and then publicly diss it for indie street cred? That's sort of like what he's doing with Hollywood. Yeah, Hollywood sucks, but I'll take all that glamour and money on my terms, thank you. You have to play somewhat by the rules if you want into the Hollywood game. So the question is then, does Bong Joon-ho compromise just enough?
Ironically, for a movie about a bullet train, Snowpiercer lacks a strong forward momentum and an ability to stay on track. Now, as I mentioned in the open, this film features an Eastern story structure, and I think that it would have benefited, at least commercially, for more of a mix of East and West, kind of like what the Wachowskis did with Speed Racer, although that wasn't a success commercially either. And I think that Eastern filmmaking continues to be a tough sell here in the West, at least with mainstream audiences. And I don't know what it's going to take to eventually make that sale, but I don't think that Snowpiercer is the answer, because besides its Hollywood cast, this is an Eastern piece of filmmaking through and through. It actually reminded me quite a bit of some anime films, even Akira. And I have to say, any film that can call to mind Akira is successful on some level. But Akira was a lot more ambitious and grand, whereas Snowpiercer, I think, seems like not just a small movie, but one that's hampered by its smallness. That's not to say there weren't some great moments. There are, and there are some great performances, and I'll get to that in a moment. But Unfortunately, the whole is not greater than the sum of the parts. Now, right about now, some of you might be thinking, Grace, I can't believe you gave Transformers 4 a pass, but here you are taking Snowpiercer to task. And my answer is, it's all about managing expectations. And I think that that's something the Transformers franchise does brilliantly. It manages expectations. So it's a safe bet with people's money. That's why they're willing to buy a ticket to that movie. And I also think they feel they get their money's worth because they were given what they were promised. Transformers says right away, I am movie junk food. But that's not what Snowpiercer says. Snowpiercer says, I am a smart action movie. However, when you actually see it, it's not as smart as it claims to be, and I think the action sequences aren't as good as they need to be for a small, foreign film like this. It's not at the level of The Raid, and especially not at the level of The Raid 2. Action sequences that are extraordinary and really demand your attention. That's not the case with Snowpiercer. Now over to the intellectual side, Snowpiercer, I think, is part of a larger trend in Hollywood and I guess in filmmaking in general, since this is a South Korean film. But that's that filmmakers have gotten very good at making their movie seem like it's intellectual, whereas it's actually not intellectual. Because it's not enough just to ask the big questions, or sometimes simply only allude to them. You need to offer some kind of answer. It doesn't have to be the answer, but it needs to be at least a theory. Because it's kind of like being asked a really excellent, impressive riddle, however, only to find out that the person who asked you the riddle never even bothered to come up with the answer. They just were focusing so much on the question. And in fact, because of that, there might not even be an answer to the question. And I kind of felt that way when this film ended. And I have to say, the bottom line is that this film thematically deals with very similar issues as the Purge franchise here in the United States, which is now a franchise. And I think the Purge does it more effectively and more entertainingly, and more commercially. And that's why that film's getting a sequel, whereas I think that not only will Snowpiercer not get a sequel, but I think it's going to set back this filmmaker in terms of Western audiences, whereas the host, as I said in the opening of this review, put him in a great position. But I did say that I liked some elements of the film. So what did I like? All right, I have my list here. As I said, great moments. There are some really fascinating moments, great reveals. I don't want to give anything away, but this film did manage to surprise me, and I always appreciate that, since especially anyone who sees a lot of movies can speak to this. You become pretty good at predicting twists and turns, but this movie still, as I said, managed to surprise me. And then, of course, something else that was, I also want to point out, I'm a big fan of world building, and while this film had some interesting ideas, I think that overall the world building was a little sloppy. It left a lot of questions unanswered, and questions that needed to be answered to really make me buy what was happening on screen. I think it got better as it went along, but I think I had too many questions, I'd say, for the first about 20 minutes of this movie. But then also I want to say that the performances here were really phenomenal, and it's one of the best aspects of the film. Chris Evans, he's kind of doing his apocalyptic version of Captain America, but I think that as Captain America the Winter Soldier showed, and then now this film, he's getting very good at that kind of role. He did a great job, and he has a big emotional moment at the end of the film, and to his credit, he sold it. So I think that while this film can't sell Eastern storytelling, I think it does sell Chris Evans as an actor. Actor, not actor. Then I also thought, oh yes, Tilda Swinton. The female roles here were overall very good. And Tilda Swinton, Octavia Spencer did another good job as well. Actually, some of the best work I've seen her do lately. I think she has had a hard time finding roles to capitalize on her Oscar win, but this was a great role for her, and she was very good. But Tilda Swinton was phenomenal, and she looked like, speaking of anime, like she walked out of an anime film. She had a lot of, makeup and prosthetics put on her face to make her almost barely recognizable, and her character work here was just phenomenal, and I was just super impressed with what she delivered here. Then also, I have to say, two actors are in this film from the host, South Korean actors. Kang-ho Song, he plays the security expert that helps out in the film, and then also Ah Sung-ko as his daughter. They both did a really good job, which is made all the more impressive by the fact that there was a big language barrier for their characters. Ah Sung-ko, the daughter, spoke some English, but Kang-ho Sung totally spoke only Korean, and there was like a translating machine that kind of would speak for him sometimes so that they didn't have to use subtitles, but his performance was in another language, in an English language film. And so the fact that he was still able to connect and to compete at the same level as the other actors was impressive, because I think while there was a language barrier, not just with the rest of the cast, but the audience, emotionally he did a great job of connecting all around. And so did this actress who played his daughter, Ah Sung-ko. Very nice work. So in short, Snowpiercer isn't what it says it is. It doesn't deliver what it promises, and I think it does a poor job of managing expectations. But if you're a big anime fan, I think you should check it out. And I think that there are very good moments in the film that I think that further down the line, it's something you should check out if you're a fan of filmmaking in general on demand or streaming. So that's my review of Snowpiercer. Thank you to everybody who recommended again that I go to see it. I did have a good time going with the Q&A and everything. It was a great experience. And I hope you'll write down below what you thought of the film, and also anything else you'd like to share. And you can check out some more episodes right now.